So how does one go about solving the hard problem of consciousness?
Well, so most of my good friends and colleagues who are studying the hard problem of consciousness are physicalists. They assume that space and time are fundamental and that objects inside space and time, like the elementary particles of the standard model of physics, the bosons, leptons, and quarks, for example, are fundamental parts of reality, and then any objects that are made out of them are part of reality as well. So protons, neutrons, and neurons and brains. So they start with space-time and physical objects in space-time as the fundamental reality, and assume that life and consciousness are latecomers, that the universe began in the Big Bang. There was no life, there was no consciousness, and it took millions, billions of years for life to emerge, and then who knows how much longer after that for consciousness to emerge. That's the standard story. And so for them, the question is, how do physical systems, such as brains or maybe artificial intelligences, give rise to consciousness? And my attitude is that that whole framework is missing the results of our best scientific theories, namely evolution by natural selection on the one hand, and also quantum field theory and Einstein's theory of gravity, both of which tell us that space-time is doomed. That space-time has been assumed to be fundamental for centuries, space and time, and then space-time more recently, has been assumed to be fundamental, and it's been a wonderful framework, but our best theories tell us it's over, that that framework is not fundamental, and we need to find some new mathematically precise, more fundamental ideas outside of space-time. So space-time is doomed. That's what physicists like Nima Arkani Hamed and David Gross are saying about space-time. So these are the experts who are studying space-time, and they're the ones that are pronouncing its death, and therefore the death of objects inside space-time. And the work that I've been doing just agrees. It says that evolution by natural selection agrees with the physicist that space-time, even though it's tacitly assumed in the way that Darwin even thought about evolution, when you look at the mathematics of evolutionary theory, it agrees that that tacit assumption is false, and that the theory of evolution tells us that space and time are not fundamental. They're more like a headset, a virtual reality headset that lets us play the game of life. So when evolution by natural selection and quantum field theory with Einstein's gravity both tell us that space and time and objects in space and time are not fundamental, then my attitude is we should go with the best science. And that means that a theory of consciousness which tries to boot up consciousness from physical systems is doomed to fail. It's doomed to fail because our best science tells us that space-time itself is doomed. So we cannot hope. It would be, for example, like someone trying to build a space program on the assumption that the Earth is flat. Well, as soon as you find out the Earth is not flat, you need new assumptions to build your space program. That's just not the way you want to go. So my colleagues and friends who are working on this, it was a wonderful assumption. It was reasonable to start with neurons, for example, or artificial intelligence circuits and so forth, before we discovered that space-time is not fundamental. Now that we know space-time is not fundamental, we're wasting our time. Well, it's not a complete waste of time, because you'll learn a lot even by starting off with a mistaken foundation. But ultimately, you won't succeed. You will not be able to start with flat Earth or space and time and boot up a theory of consciousness. So my attitude is we need to rethink from the ground up. Of course, I'm all for neuroscience. I'm a cognitive neuroscientist myself, so I'm not saying that brains are irrelevant. We need to study neural activity, and we need to study artificial intelligences, but we have to study them in a very, very different way. Evolution tells us that what we're seeing is just an interface. It's there to guide adaptive behavior, period, not to tell us the truth. So when we look inside brains and we see neurons and neural circuits, we're seeing something that's very important for us to understand, but it's just an interface. It's an interface description. It's not the truth. So neuroscience is going to be far more difficult than we thought. We're going to need more money for neuroscience, because we look through microscopes and we see neurons and synapses and so forth and networks. And we thought that that's all we had to deal with. No, that's just the surface of what we have to deal with. the reality behind that is also something we're going to have to deal with. We'll have to reverse engineer neurons and neural networks and so forth. So the short answer is I don't think we can start with any objects inside space and time and boot up consciousness, although the only clues we have are inside space and time. And so we have to study, for example, cognitive neuroscience, but we have to reverse engineer it and find structures beyond space and time that would allow us to boot up a theory of consciousness. So you can see the game just got a lot harder and far more interesting. So long answer to your question.